In this episode of Downtown Agriculture, we'll be constructing the planters that will house the bulk of production in our first year. There are many things to consider when designing your planters, but functionality should be at the top of your list. It's true that gardens can be wonderful and attractive additions to a home, and they can significantly impact your property value. But let's remember that at the core of any garden is a healthy environment for plant life. If you intend to grow food in your garden, you need to take every measure to ensure that the materials used in your planter designs are free of any toxic chemicals that could leach into your produce. Not only will man-made chemicals poison you, but they'll also harm your plants throughout their life cycle. Be mindful of chemical or pressure-treated lumber, wood stains, paint, liners, plastics, glues. Anything that will come into contact with your soil or plant bodies should be taken into consideration. Basically, ask yourself, does the material I'm using for my planter occur naturally? And if so, does it contain any chemicals that may be detrimental to my health? I believe the key difference between gardening and traditional agriculture is artistic expression. Not only does the design of the planters come into play aesthetically, but the layout and how everything appears as a whole does as well. And your options are of course restricted by the space that you have to work with. I'm transforming what would commonly be referred to as a side lawn here, which means I have one big rectangular space next to a pre-existing walkway that I'm currently using, and then a bit of a buffer between my walkway and my house. So my task is to utilize as much of that surface area as possible to grow food, but also to make it visually appealing and ideally increase the value of my property along the way. For this project, I made the difficult decision of balancing space for maximizing productivity to help me pay my grocery bills and fuel my body with powerful nutrients, but also expressing myself through geometry in a way that's artistically sound. So for my material, I've chosen cinder block, and I'll be binding them all together with something called mortar. Now, cinder blocks are made from traditional concrete cast in a large factory owned by Mutual Materials, and they're 1 part rock, 1 part sand, and 1 part lime building cement to hold them all together. Concrete was invented in the late 19th century and has since transformed masonry and construction as we know it. These materials are all found in nature and are food safe. This is essentially man-made stone. The mortar is made of almost the same stuff, 1 part sand, 1 part cement, and water. Now the lime and the cement will add acidity to your soil as it comes into contact with the seams of the stone wall. But after testing for its effects following heavy rains, I found that the effect of the soil's pH, even for the smaller designs I've chosen, is negligible and easy to amend. Some plants, of course, prefer acidic soil, so you should take all of that into consideration when using this combination of materials. Now these planters were constructed atop the weed block and crushed rock combination I showed in an earlier episode, and then I used builder's sand, which is a heavy grit sand often utilized in construction, to make sure that each block was sitting level before laying down the wall. That will aid in presenting uniformity between the planters, and it should keep them from settling too much over time. Now, a professional contractor would most likely insist that there be at least 3 to 5 inches of crushed rock beneath these structures to prevent them from settling. And while I haven't done that consistently, as you may have noticed in the previous video throughout this entire space, I feel confident that any settling that occurs in the future will be easily repaired if I should choose to do so. Now these planters, once they've dried, will end up resembling a castle, or perhaps some of the more modern commercial buildings you see in the more industrial parts of town, which means that they'll easily outlive a person, they're extremely weather and corrosion resistant, and they usually end up looking better with age. You will not need to rebuild these planters in your lifetime like you would with cedar or other wood planter designs, and they're inexpensive. I bought about 400 of these cinder blocks in bulk, and I paid less than $2 USD per block. The mortar won't be breaking your bank anytime soon either. Due to the size of these blocks, which are 8 by 8 by 16 inches, they also make great seating platforms, and you can even lay on them if you like that firm surface for your back. So if you want to have parties or sit outside with your friends, these walls will provide ample seating in addition to keeping your plants well contained for generations. Don't worry, because I got this angle with the Rebel already. Rebel scum. Rebel scum. What do you think?